Assalamu alaikum. So I've been pondering the question of why so many non-Muslims perceive Islam to be a violent religion. I understand that there's the manufacturing of consent in the West through the cherry picking of verses to justify the violence that is perpetrated against Muslims. But even beyond that, I think there's a fundamental and maybe even willful misunderstanding of the word peace itself. The colonialist sees peace as fairly straightforward: the absence of violence, the absence of rebellion. This makes sense on some level because even so-called good and empathetic Western liberals don't like seeing babies murdered or civilians bombed. They want to be able to pat themselves on the back and say, peace has been achieved. But the absence of violence in and of itself says absolutely nothing about whether there is true peace. That is because true peace, what is called by sociologists as positive peace, requires the absence of injustice. And this requires the reevaluation of whether the peace that is being sought is really peace at all. I mean, a household with an abusive parent is not really a peaceful household just because you don't see the children being beaten and verbally abused in front of you at that very moment, right? So that sort of peace is called negative peace. Colonial powers often enforce this negative peace by silencing resistance and demanding compliance to terms that they are comfortable with. And to the oppressors, peace means the absence of rebellion. This negative peace hides much deeper violence, though: economic exploitation, cultural erasure, and psychological harm, and often, as in the case of the Palestinians, apartheid. Because of the misunderstanding of negative peace as true peace, people reading the Quran will often point out the so-called violent verses and say, Islam is violent. But in the Quran, peace cannot be achieved without justice. Peace in Islam is not simply the passive acceptance of peace at any cost, of giving up autonomy, land, customs, or religious practices simply to appease colonizers. True peace in Islam is positive peace that is rooted in justice and in protecting the vulnerable. In Surah An-Nisa, verse 105, the Quran commands, "O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or your parents or your relatives." Islam demands a peace that is fundamentally rooted in justice for everyone concerned.